You're listening to Supporting Physician Spouses, the go-to podcast for anyone navigating life as the spouse or partner of a physician. Here we dive into candid conversations about the unique challenges, joys, and uncertainties that come with this life. Whether you're in the thick of your spouse's training or stepping into a new season, we're here with support, insight, and real talk. Welcome back to Supporting Physician Spouses. I'm Kendra. This is part 2 of our Fair Play conversation. And before we jump in, here's a quick recap of what we covered in part 1. We talked about why so many physician spouses feel exhausted even when they have support, because so much of what we do is invisible. We covered the core idea behind fair play, which is moving from helping to truly owning responsibilities from conception to completion. We also talked about minimum standards of care and how fair doesn't always mean equal, but it does mean both partners' time and well-being matter. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, go back and start there, because this episode builds on that foundation. All right, let's jump back in right where we left off.
Reality check time. When we say a physician is working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, that's real. Those aren't flexible hours. There are lives on the line. Emergencies happen. Calls happen. So are we to say that we should still own half of the household tasks? Obviously not.
Right, but here is what we are saying. There are still hours in the week when the physician is home. And the question is, what happens during those hours?
And this is where it can get pretty nuanced, because sometimes the physician is physically home, but mentally and emotionally completely tapped out. And that's real. Medical work is draining in ways that are hard to understand when you're not living it.
Absolutely. But there is a distinct difference between I'm exhausted and need to decompress, and I'm unavailable for any household participation. One is temporary and human, and the other becomes a permanent dynamic. That's what we want to avoid.
So here's kind of a next question to consider. Which cards can a busy physician own? And we're talking genuinely own conception to completion.
Yeah, so this is going to be strategic because every family is going to look a little bit different. But together, you're going to be looking for cards that have flexible timing, cards that align with the physician's interests or strengths, and cards where their unique input or experience really matters.
Yeah, for example, maybe they own one specific activity with the kids that we know that they will never miss, like Sunday morning breakfast or coaching their soccer team. Maybe it's bedtime, but we're flexible that it is on certain days because we know that schedules change, rotations change, at least those in training. And so those cards will shift, and the flexibility, as long as it works for your family and it's not leading to resentment or overwhelm or more mental burden, that's sufficient. They own it completely. They plan it. They execute it.
That's all we want, right? Or maybe they take certain financial tasks. Maybe they own the investment strategy or monitoring credit cards or something where they can do it on their own timeline, but it's fully theirs. The key is that they have to own something from conception to completion, because if the physician doesn't own anything, they become a guest in their own home, and the dynamic becomes that of a parent and child versus a partner to partner.
I think that's really good to point out, because that dynamic happens a lot in couples, and it just trickles down into everything. Like one person's leading how we're parenting children, and that trickle down, I think, is important to realize. And it stemmed from survival. We've talked about this, but
yeah. Well, how often have you heard somebody say, like, in response to, oh, how many kids do you have? And they're like, I have 5, unless you count my husband, then it's 6. Isn't that icky?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to create an extra child. It's like we want a partner. And part of being a good partner is being present in the negotiation and the discussions and being part of the plan for how your family functions.
One thing that we haven't talked about is on the cards, she has a little indication of how frequent the tasks happen.
Mhm.
And she challenges couples using the cards or families using the cards that the ones that happen most frequently, though the goal is to distribute those equitably. And I think that's been more of our challenge. Like I've had my spouse be in charge of garbage since I can remember, right?
Yeah.
And he pretty much can do that task super well. But that's a once a week task. And then when you lay out all the ones that happen frequently, like multiple times in a day or in a week, and I'm realizing I'm the one doing all that, that's where I'm like, okay, that's why I'm feeling the resentment. We can both see it. And how are we going to navigate that? Whether it's splitting it up between ourselves, whether it's taking out folding laundry, like we're going to create a whole different system for a family so that that's not even a task, or are we outsourcing that?
Yeah, I love that because what you've just described there is the negotiation process that going through that demands. You have to be willing to look at all of them and to be able to look at your husband and be like, I value your time equally. I value
Mhm.
my time equally. How is this going to get done with the constraints of our life? And so that's why there's not really one size fits all, but the practice of doing it allows you to enter in those negotiations to figure out, do we need a new system? Because we can't do it this way. The way that maybe I'd prefer to have it is, do we need to outsource it? How can this get done so both of our time is not only valued equally, but so that we have time to do the things that actually bring fulfillment and joy into our lives?
Yeah. And I think sometimes it can be hard to not get caught up in like, oh, that sounds very privileged of me to even be able to think that way. But um, I think that's also a practice of self compassion too.
Mm-hmm. Well,
To
and
lean
part
into
of
it.
recognizing you don't live a normal life. If you are married to somebody who is a physician, whether you have an outside career or not, your life is not normal. It is run on a completely different scale than most people. And so being able to work with that and say, what is realistic for us? And then even to you, Katie, as you prepare, this summer to start your husband's first job as a practicing physician, to be able to look at the resources that you'll now have and say, how do we want to use these? Do we want to use it to buy back some time for either for
Mm.
yourself or for your husband? Or do we want to put it into a home, knowing that that's going to mean we have less time available to us to do other things or less resources available to outsource help so we can get some of our time back? It's,
Right.
if nothing else, this book and this process prompts really good discussions about the kind of life you want to live. And if through that discussion you find out that, oh, I don't actually fit into this at all because I don't have any spare time, she calls it unicorn time,
Hmm.
then you've got some problems. You cannot continue to live where your time is not only viewed as not equal or as important or as valuable, it's just not sustainable for a good, healthy relationship.
Yeah. I love that. One thing that I want to talk about is like almost like the tug of war, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a solution. Like this task is an issue where I'm doing it too often and you can't do it. And I think typically most couples have a kind of default behavior of like, okay, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
So kind of how to address the like this can't be done anymore the way we've been doing it. How are we going to switch and not falling into those old habits? So I don't know
Yeah,
how to
the
fit
thing
that
that's
in,
coming
but
to my mind, and I think we've talked about this before, just you and I, like really learning to treat life as an experiment. It's like the way that we're
yeah.
doing it doesn't work. And maybe I don't know the perfect solution yet, but we're going to try a series of experiments to figure out what does work.
Mhm.
And so as long as you can enter it into, we're going to start this new system. I don't know if it's going to work, if it's going to give me the results that I want, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to put forth the effort to get enough feedback to make a decision about whether we should keep going with it or whether we should abandon it and start something else. Like you're going to have to trial and error your way because your family is unique. Your family is different. you have to really be willing to experiment and have a flexible mindset that we're going to figure out what is going to work for our family, but we're going to keep at it. We're not going to just throw our hands up and go back to the way it was, unless for some reason the way it was turns out to be the best way.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I love that.
But if there's any hint of resentment, that wasn't the best way. There's got to be another way.
Totally. Does Eve ever address like what happens if the partner who doesn't share the mental load equal or like enough? Like what if they're like totally blind to it and like aren't open to it? And we can kind of get into this with our solo episodes, but
with our spouses, I think that would be the right time, because when a system is working for somebody, they don't see the need to change, which is why this process of kind of laying all the cards out and distributing them makes the invisible work visible. And that's really the first step, is like, your spouse isn't going to want to do anything different because it's working for them.
Yeah.
But it's not working for you. And if it's not working for you, then you have a problem. And because you're married, that means your relationship has a problem that has to be addressed. And so, it's making it visible. And then once it's visible, you together, that's part of the negotiation process, is you have to figure out, how are we going to get this done? Or decide, it doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. We don't care if the house is clean. Okay, well, great. I don't have to think about that anymore if that's what we decide. Or we don't care about having the garbage taken out more than once a week. I mean, you'll figure out quickly what is important to you, what's important to your partner, and how to make it work. But there is going to be some flexibility. And I know it'll be fun talking to my husband about this, because when you first go through it, it is a little uncomfortable, because you have to remember, you are the one who knows all of the invisible work, and you're likely already holding the cards. You're the one who stands to benefit the most from it on the surface.
Yeah.
But as we'll talk in the episode with my husband, that it's way below the surface. And that's the part that really matters. So
I love that.
I can see why there might be some resistance to that from your partner who feels like they're already doing so much. And it's only because they can't see what it is that you do. But you both have to get on the same page about your time being equally as valuable as his time. That is the starting point. Once all time is created equally, then you have a place to start from. But you have to believe your time is equal to your physician partner's time. He has to believe his time is equal to your time. Like, that is the playing field we're looking for. And then start negotiating.
That's so good. So maybe, can we rapid fire some common pitfalls we see trying to implement this strategy?
Yes. Let's do it. First, the emergency override. You could hear, I had a patient die. That is real. That's legitimately traumatic. It takes precedence, but it can't become the excuse for everything forever. Like I mentioned earlier, there's really no good time to have a difficult conversation when you're married to a physician or a surgeon or somebody who's dealing with these high stakes things. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have them.
Yeah. We build up backup plans. If the physician owns bedtime but has to work late on a particular night, what's the plan? You distinguish between actual emergencies versus routine unpredictability.
Yeah, because too often everything could be considered an emergency, and then where are you? Oh, this is a good one. Go.
Second pitfall, the gratitude trap. I should just be grateful my spouse works so hard, or I should just be grateful we're financially stable. We've talked about this.
Boy, did we. I mean, on the same token, especially now in today's economic environment, we should just be grateful we have a job at all. But gratitude and fairness are not mutually exclusive. You can be grateful, and remember, we use and, not but. You can feel grateful and feel resentful about unfair dynamics. And both of those things can be true. And so the episode that we did was on using gratitude to gaslight yourself. It's possible to be grateful and to want more equality in your relationship.
Right. Third, the takeover temptation. The non-physician partner says, okay, you own this card, and then immediately take it back because they're not doing it right.
Yeah.
I fall into this.
Oh, yeah. Who hasn't? Like, you're doing that so wrong. There's a better way to do this. If they are meeting the minimum standard of care that you both agreed on, you have to let them do it their own way, whether that's cleaning or parenting, driving. My husband will hear that and know exactly what I mean. Like, let them do it their own way.
Yeah. I guess, and part of that is just have a clear timeline of when that should be done too. Sometimes that's my thing, like, oh, okay, like there wasn't really a pressing timeline, but now this is 2 weeks and I'm like tired of seeing it, or, whatever you have, whatever
Yeah,
the situation may be.
that's the tricky part. But you really have to let it, you have to let that go. So just pay attention to whether or not you're still trying to manage, because we're talking about conception to completion. But if you're still in there kind of being like, you haven't done it yet, you haven't done it yet, you haven't done it yet, then have you
I'm managing
really given it over to completion?
it. Okay, fourth is weaponizing the system. Well, saying things like, well, you said you own this card, using fair play as ammunition instead of a collaboration tool.
You just have to keep coming back to this is about building a successful partnership. It's not about scorekeeping at all. So if somebody drops a ball, kind of like what you were just talking about, you can talk about it and adjust, but you don't want to weaponize it. And you certainly don't want to be like, oh, well, you can't do it, so I'm taking it back. Because then you've just reinforced the idea that you're the only one who can do it. And that's not the point.
Before we wrap up the main framework, let's talk about implementation.
Okay, so if you're listening and thinking, okay, this makes sense, how do we actually do this? We're going to give you some practical thoughts. But one of those I should say is you should probably get the book. Yes. Read the book, look at the cards for sure.
Yeah, we have the cards and we watched I think a documentary on Prime, ? I think. Okay, first one is, this is not a one and done conversation. Unfortunately, life changes, career stages change, residency is different than attending life. Our kids grow out of certain phases, tasks change, different specialties have different demands. It all changes.
Yeah. So even you just have to know it's going to change. And so what you do is you build in regular calibration. So maybe that's monthly check-ins. It might be quarterly. Maybe it's weekly to figure out what's working, what's not, and do we need to redistribute any cards? And we did an episode about negotiating your marriage contract back in episode 5, where we talked about what happens when your expectations go too low. So I would recommend going back and listening to that also.
Yes. And second, if resentment has already built up, and for a lot of couples it has, you can't just use fair play to address that resentment.
Yeah.
There might be a repair conversation that needs to happen first. Like, I felt invisible, or I felt like I can't do anything right. I've been angry about this for a long time. Those feelings don't disappear just because you create a new system. You might need professional support as well, like therapy, counseling, coaching, and that is all great, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Anything that helps you get to where you want to be, totally endorsed. All right, the third thing, and this is especially for non-physician partners who also work, is how do you negotiate when one career dominates by necessity? We know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is tough because, yes, the medical career might need to take top priority in certain seasons, but your job is more flexible, can't become your career doesn't matter.
Yeah, you have to make space for you as the non-physician to grow and to have goals and to succeed in what area you decide on. And maybe not equally in every season, but it can't be permanently sidelined. And that's what I see too often, is that it's just been permanently sidelined.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that this year, pretty strong. And we have to think long term. What happens when our kids are grown? When the medical career doesn't need as much from our family system? We don't want to wake up one day and realize one person has no career, no identity, no goals because they've sacrificed everything.
Yeah, that just kind of breaks my heart to even hear that. But that is a reality for a lot of people. So Let's get to the practical implementation stuff. Do you have to have the actual card deck?
Oh, not necessarily. I have found that people have created these tasks that Eve Rodsky outlines in an Excel spreadsheet, so you can find those online. Or if you're already pretty an organized person, you already know all the tasks in the household and you can create your own system that works. Using anything that's reducing your mental load that is shared. So is it your shared calendar? Are you automating tasks like the reminders? Whatever works for you.
Yeah, again, be a scientist, experiment with these tools. Written agreements sound totally unromantic, but they can work. An agreement that says you own these cards and I own these cards, and here is what good enough looks like. Regular check-ins really are the backbone, and it's ongoing. It's not one and done, like you said earlier.
And then lastly, so what does success actually look like? It's not perfect 50-50, and it's not zero resentment.
Success really looks like both partners being fully seen, valued, and having agency over their time. It's moving from, I have to do everything, to we've decided together that this is who does what and how our family works.
The goal is supporting the physician's career and the family's well-being and both partners' fulfillment, not one at the expense of the other.
Exactly. So here are the key takeaways. Fair doesn't mean equal, especially in physician families. But asymmetry doesn't mean one person has to do and manage everything.
In the framework, there's clear ownership. The person's doing a task conception to completion. There's a minimum standard of care, and you are regularly recalibrating the system. In the next episode, you'll hear from Kendra and her husband about their unique approach and challenges. Are you going first or am I going first?
I just looked at it when you said, I thought, apparently I'm going first.
Okay. I'll start that over. Next episode, you're going to hear from Kendra and her husband about their unique approach and challenges, how they handled the unpredictability of medicine, and where they are still figuring things out.
And then after that, you'll hear from Katie and her husband about their real life experiences, how they've divided cards with his demanding schedule, what worked, what didn't, and how it's changed their relationship.
In the meantime, here are some questions to think about. In your relationship, who holds the mental load for most tasks? What would it mean for your physician partner to own something from conception to completion? What's one card you wish you could hand off, and what is stopping you? And lastly, where has resentment built up in this dynamic?
And just know going in, this work is hard. It is vulnerable and it's ongoing. But the alternative, that silent resentment and growing distance, is even harder.
I'm glad you brought that up. It is really hard, and it can be easy to get defensive on both sides. And just knowing that that's going to show up and then working through it together with love and generosity. Your partnership is worth the effort.
Thanks for listening to Supporting Physician Spouses. If this episode resonated with you, please leave it a review. It helps more spouses find the show. You can also follow us on Instagram at Supporting Physician Spouses. We love connecting with you there or by email. If you have a topic idea, email hello@supportingphysicianspouses.com. See you next time.